Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at the strengths and weaknesses and evaluating both recent welfare reforms as well as immigration policies. So starting with the strengths of welfare reforms, the idea of welfare reforms is to tighten eligibility for welfare. So it's reducing the number of people that are dependent on welfare. And the idea is that if these are effective, so initiatives like the job compliance, making parents come back to work once their children turn 6, increasing the pension age, all these things should help to increase the supply of labour and reduce the impact on the budget associated with providing lots and lots of welfare. So it should help to increase labour force participation, that'll increase competition for jobs, boost productivity, and also bring new skills into the workforce as well. Welfare and taxation reforms can be designed to complement each other to increase the availability and quality of labour. So currently people, usually women who are out of the labour force caring for children, face a big disincentive to return to work because they experience really high effective marginal tax rates. Okay, where they're required to pay both income tax as well as losing their access to childcare benefits and family tax benefits or welfare from the government. If these systems are amended, like what they're trying to achieve at the moment, by increasing childcare subsidies, lowering effective tax rates and things like that, they can encourage increased labour force participation and therefore help to boost the supply of labour and allow for strong and sustainable growth because there's increased productivity and competition for jobs. So both of these first two are very similar, but the key strength is that it's getting people back to work, reducing the amount of people that are reliant on welfare, and creating more competition in the labour force. In terms of weaknesses, look, the argument is that a lot of these are politically unpopular, and the reason for that is that because they've been reforming the pension age and reducing eligibility for welfare, they're often not very popular because they hurt particular sectors of the community. So the reforms are designed to make the system more sustainable as our population ages. However, they face strong political opposition as well as activism from interest groups because they can lead to negative impacts on people's living standards. So unlike education policies, which can be easy to pass because they don't have negative impacts on certain groups of society, a lot of these new initiatives are targeted at low-income earners and can lead to reduced transfer income for them, and therefore that can be a weakness in terms of being able to pass these policies. This is a weakness compared to monetary policy, which is politically unbiased, and there's not interest groups fighting for or against changes in interest rates. Some critics of welfare reforms argue that there's only minimal benefits. Australia already has one of the most tightly targeted welfare safety nets in the developed world. The vast majority of those that are on welfare are there because they genuinely need it. And the vast majority of welfare spending is on age pensions rather than unemployment or disability support. So the argument is most of the money that the government's spending is not on lazy people that are on welfare, it's on people that genuinely need support. Critics of recent welfare reforms that involved further tightening and reducing eligibility argue that it further disadvantages and targets the most vulnerable members without noticeably increasing participation. So the argument is that you're going to hurt those that are struggling in society, increase the Gini coefficient, but it's not going to have a meaningful impact on participation because most of the people that are receiving welfare in Australia are unlikely to come back to work. Immigration, strengths. Okay, the strengths of immigration, the main strength that I'd be focusing on, this is why I put this first, is that it's really flexible. Australia has the ability to change its level of migration based on the strength of the labour market. So the flow and type of migrants can change in line with changing economic conditions. So for example, if we have a booming economy like we did back in 2007, experiencing high levels of skill shortages and capacity constraints, the government can increase the flow of skill migration. They can increase both permanent migration, so increase our permanent migrations, or they can just source a lot of temporary migrants. Remembering there's over 1.8 million temporary migrants in Australia. So when we are experiencing skill shortages, they can increase our productive capacity, alleviate those skill shortages, and allow for more sustainable growth. And then when the economy is in decline, they can reduce our levels of immigration, take on less temporary migrants, and reduce the flow of permanent migration to Australia. So one of the key strengths of migration policy is its flexibility in terms of the numbers and the type of migrants that come to Australia. They can go up and down based on the strength of the economy. The use of immigration policy to allow skilled migrants to enter Australia increases the quality and quantity of labour resources. So if we target areas where we do have legitimate skill shortages, we do this on an annual basis. That helps to loosen the labour market and gives us access to new skills and ideas, as well as increasing competition for jobs, which all helps to boost productivity and alleviate capacity constraints. So that ability to target particular sectors of the economy where we have legitimate skill shortages can help to reduce issues in that particular sector. So the key strengths we'll go back to just quickly, it's flexibility to move up and down in terms of the level of migration or the number of migrants depending on the strength of the economy, and that ability to target particular sectors where we have skill shortages and be really targeted, unlike monetary policy. Another strength is that immigrants arrive with skills and experience in the areas of employment required, and this reduces the cost of the Australian economy because we don't need to pay for the training and education. So it reduces the amount of government funds that need to be put towards training and education because we know that we can automatically get these skills from overseas and we don't have to put them through the same rigorous training program which costs the government billions and billions of dollars. So it reduces the opportunity cost associated with training and development of the Australian labour force. In terms of weaknesses, so just summarising the strengths. Firstly, it's flexible, it can move up and down based on the strength of the economy. It can target particular sectors of the economy where there is legitimate skill shortages. And thirdly, it reduces the government expenditure in the form of having to pay for education and training. In terms of weaknesses, skilled migration can be used to fill gaps in skills rather than the government investing in education and training. So while it's a good thing that it saves the government money in terms of education and training, it can lead to more Australians being structurally unemployed in the long term because instead of allowing employers to train local workers, they just source workers from overseas, and that can lead to problems in the future. So immigration might be contributing to economic growth and restrained wage growth, but might not be helping to achieve full employment because they can lead to structural unemployment in the long term. So the strength is that they reduce costs of production, promote productivity, and should create more jobs. The weakness is that they may decrease the incentive to train Australian workers, which can lead to more structural unemployment in the long term. Another weakness is immigration policies can be controversial and subject to political influence. The policies can be adjusted in order to address social and political concerns, even though these changes would detract from the effectiveness and economic benefits of the policy. So recent public debate around immigration has led to a reduction in skilled migrant approvals, despite some members of the government and economic commentators noting that Australia's high population growth is one of the key drivers of economic growth. So the argument is that there can be a lot of political influence. Peter Dutton, for example, has had a lot of influence on the level of migration and reduced permanent migration numbers, which has led to backlash from other members of politics. If immigration policy is not well managed, it can result in social effects that detract from its benefits. So, for example, it can lead to overcrowding in cities, which hurts our non-material living standards. It can lead to a lack of investment in infrastructure, unless there is significant investment in infrastructure to keep up with population growth, it can cause concerns with overcrowding. So summarising those main weaknesses, the ones I'd be focusing on is the fact the lack of incentive to train up Australian workers, which can lead to more structural unemployment, and the fact that it can be controversial and sometimes people have different agendas, which sometimes doesn't lead to them agreeing within Parliament, and thirdly, the impact on non-material living standards through congestion. Thank you.